I'm Peter, and this is the Tarot Table with Bonnie and Peter, where we lay the cards on the table to talk about life, tarot, and everything in between. So shuffle your deck, pull up a chair, and join us at the Tarot Table. Hi, everyone. I'm Peter, and welcome to the Tarot Table with Bonnie and Peter. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at the aces. We're going to look at all four aces in the deck. We're going to take a look at some of the commonalities. So what do aces have in common? And we're going to look at some of the differences. So we'll look at each of the four aces in the deck. And we'll take a look at some of the practical applications. So when can you use an ace or the aces in a tarot deck for practical purposes? So if you take a look a few episodes past, we looked at how to use the tarot in everyday life. And today we're going to do that, focusing on the aces. Did I miss anything, Bon? I know, sorry. Of course, we'll do our typical card draw at the end, where we'll randomly draw a card and focus on what it might mean for you or for all of us if it ever were to show up in a reading. Bonnie, did I miss anything around what we're going to cover in the aces?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Good job, Peter.
All right. So I guess the idea is, let's get started. Aces in general in a deck mean, I like the word oneness when we talk about an ace, because I think, everything that applies to a one applies to an ace. So aces are often about the start of something, or they're about, sometimes even about singularity, about something being on its own. Or we think about the word start, and we think about things like potential. We often use the language of planting a seed. And then it's like, well, what kind of seed? Well, that depends on which suit the ace is coming from. Aces can often mean things like unique or solitary, but they can also mean, the initiation of something or an offering. And I think the word offering for an ace often comes from the image that we associate with the Rider Waite Smith, which is the hand coming out of a cloud offering the cup or offering the sword. But it can, and to kind of link with that idea of offering, well, what does it offer? And sometimes we think, well, the aces they offer a gift, or they offer a message. So those are the kinds of things that an ace can signify. And then we get specific into the suit. So Bonnie, what else would you add around the aces in general?
In general.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
We'll
great.
get specific, right? We'll get into each of the different aces so that people have an idea of what we mean by aces. But aces generally mean not the same thing, because there are four different aces. So, sorry, yeah, that's what I mean. Aces in general.
Aces in general. Yeah. No, that was great, Peter. That was a really good comprehensive list of what the aces mean. I would probably add that they're like unformed, like it's potential,
Yeah.
but the energy is not formulated yet, right? So it's the possibility, it's the potential, it's an opportunity for
Yeah.
something, but nothing has actually happened yet. And also with the aces, I believe that that creates the potential of all the cards in an entire suit. So you couldn't have, a preceding card in that suit without having taken that opportunity in the ace. So everything really comes back to the ace and whatever that opportunity or that potential, that possibility that was presented to you. I also believe too that it's sort of like a divine, like it's been offered to you in a divine nature,
Right.
right? And sometimes when that card shows up, you may already know what that is. You're like, oh, right, this is the beginning of something, or it could be the sign that something is coming. So be on the lookout for a new potential, for a new idea, for a new possibility. So that's the beauty of the ace, is that it's unformed, but the potential is there.
Yeah, that's no, that's I love the idea of when you mentioned that there's a divine quality to what the gift or the offering that's coming from the ace.
Mhm,
I love that. 'Cause it actually reminded me of something else I would wanted to mention is I always think um, from a connection perspective, there are three cards that the aces connect to in the major arcana. So we have the aces as part of the minor arcana, but I think aces through their connection through one actually connect with the magician, the wheel
mhm,
of fortune, and the sun, because the wheel or the magician is a card is numbered one, so it has that link to the aces. The wheel of fortune is card 10, and from a numerological perspective, if you added the digit one and the digit zero, you would
mhm,
get a one. And the sun, which is card 19, is one plus nine, which gives us 10, and 10 then reduces to one. And I think those energies, the energy of the aces, link nicely to that, the magician
mhm.
being the manifestor, the thing that starts all other things. The Wheel of Fortune being that card that talks to us about, well, yeah, some things that are offered are um, can can support us, can lift us up, and other things that can bring us down. That that there is a that there is a karmic connection to what gets offered, and then the sun. I always think that idea of the offering and the impact that it has on our ideal self, or the self that we put out there, the that radiance that is represented by the sun. So I just wanted to point out, because we won't get into those connections today, but that, and then we actually, I will mention one other thing is, when we talked about in our last episode, we talked about the court cards. You had mentioned brilliantly that the pages are kind of like the aces of the court family, that pages can sometimes also be that bringer of news, that initiation, that unformed, that raw energy that we often see inside the aces. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I love that. I love the connection with the majors in that. The other thing too with the ace is that you have a choice to either accept that offer or not, right? So you're being presented with something. So it's sort of up to you, right? Which generally comes in the twos. Did you accept it or not, right?
Yeah.
So that's also something to think about, because a lot of times we're presented with opportunities and we choose not to accept them. And for what reason? That could be fear, fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of success, right? So interesting to see, if aces are always showing up for you, what is that telling you? Maybe that there's these opportunities, and what are you doing with them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant, brilliant summary. Do you want to pick, shall we pick an ace and take a look
Sure.
at them specifically? So, okay,
Yeah, absolutely. You want to start with wands?
go ahead. Sure.
Okay. Oh, you want me to start? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the
you
wands.
go ahead. I started the general conversation. So it's, yeah.
So I'll start with
Start us
Ace of
off with
Wands.
ones.
So Ace of Wands, I always think about our podcast as an Ace of Wands moment,
Yeah.
because when we were talking all that time ago, it's like, oh, let's start a podcast. So in that context, it's like the Ace of Wands is presenting you with an opportunity for something that you love, something you're really passionate
Yeah.
about, something that's creative. Uh, it could be anything in your life, right? Like when we're thinking about wands, we're thinking about that fiery energy, right? Like what really lights you up. So that could be a project, that could be even career, that could be a love interest, like whatever it is that's really you're passionate about. That's sort of that wands energy. You can also think of the wands, and I think Lisa Robertson presented this as an idea. Of course, it's not my own, but thinking of the Ace of Wands like a magic wand, right? Like you have a magic wand. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to create with this magic wand? So you now have this power to do something. So what is that? So I think when an Ace of Wands shows up for you, it's either that you have this idea already of something that you want to do, and like you're being given now the energy to be able to see that through. So it's like, you want to do something, there's this energy now backing you up. Hasn't happened yet, and you still have to work to make it happen, but it's there for you. It's supporting you. So that's what I would think about when I see an ace of wands. What about you? I'm sure I left some stuff out.
No,
It's like
I don't think you left.
creative energy and will, right?
Well, and that's exactly it. And I always think that and this I'll repeat for all the aces, is that I often think what the ace does is it represents the essence of the suit itself. So
Mhm.
the we talk about, and we've done this before, we've talked about the elements, the four elements and how they link to each of the suits. And you mentioned that wands are the suit that links to the element of fire. So I often think, well, the ace, when it shows up, is presenting itself as the essence of the suit of wands itself, of the essence of fire. So what do I mean by that? We've used some of that language already, that it really is, it's the potential for things that 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 are passionate. It's the potential for things that lead down a creative path, that might inspire, that might heat us up, that might give a spark. All of that language that sits inside the suit of wands gets kind of represented by the ace of wands. That one, when we think about the language of seed, well, nothing has happened yet. Everything sits inside the seed. The seed doesn't look like a plant, or if it's it doesn't look like a flower. It doesn't look like a vegetable. It doesn't look like anything. It looks like a seed. But all the potential of what it's going to be sits inside the seed. And I see the ace as being that kind of a card. So the ace of wands is that potential for whatever else could come after the ace. So in some ways, it almost represents the start of the pathway from
Mhm.
2 all the way to 10, or even all the way to king, if you look at the personification of what that looks like. So, what does the ace of wands do? Well, like you said, it drives us. It's where we get, it's where we're ambitious. But the
Mhm.
other thing too is that, and this is where I think it links to the major arcana's wheel of fortune, is that it isn't always, we use language, we use that fire-based language to talk about the wands, but it is also where we get angry. It is also
Mhm.
where we burn, or we burn out, thinking of the 10 of wands, for example. Like it is also a space where fire can destroy as well as support and kind of and move us forward. So, that, yeah, and then going back to that concept of gift and that concept of offering, or message, any gift or offering or message that sits inside any of that fire language could easily be represented by, by the ace of wands. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. It's,
Yeah.
it's that this lights me up energy. I love when you said, I see this podcast as sort of an ace of wands moment. I do too. I think, we both have a significant amount of passion around the tarot. It was something that we started. It may not still be an ace of wands thing. It might have moved beyond that, but
Yeah.
certainly, as we talk about that, it was definitely the potential for, the potential, like that wands potential, that fire potential. So,
Exactly. And
yeah.
I love how you say that, it has the potential to burn. So if you think about being offered an opportunity, maybe something that you're really excited
Mhm.
about, but you're afraid to take action, then using that energy to burn away those limiting beliefs or those fears that prevent you from taking action.
Oh,
So,
what a great way to look at that. I'm always looking at, because I'm looking at it, was looking at it differently. I'm looking at it, making sure that, because sometimes we want to look at the cards and we see what we want to see in the cards. So we want the cards to necessarily be something of a support. And there are times when they have a cautionary tale where, there it's that, be careful that you don't get burned, or be careful that you don't
mhm,
burn out, or, be aware of that fire inside you. And if it becomes overwhelming, but I love the language that says, yeah, and then you know what? What to do with that, how to support yourself is to be able to burn that away. You going back to always that language when you talk about a question, to ask a question to tarot, it's like, well, that's great. It's a great question, but what are you going to do with that information? So always being, okay, well, you've got that fire energy. Great. Sure, you might get burned. Well, what good is that? Let's take a look at and look at that from an action oriented perspective too. Again, noting that wands are all about action. So
and sometimes it's hard to contain that energy, that fire energy, right? It can be overwhelming.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Ace of Wands is good, but it can be scary, right?
It,
If we're not ready to take that leap, then
yeah.
Sometimes we just need that little nudge.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, um, the one thing I did want to mention, Bonnie, are you okay if we talk about the practical aspect of a card as we go through it, or would you rather go through each of the aces and then talk practically how we might use them at the end
Oh, we can talk about it while we're, yeah, like as we're going through
as
each
we're going
card,
through?
then yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah. So because what I meant by that is if we go back a few episodes, we had talked about the tarot in our daily lives, and we certainly are giving, we hope anyway, so we're giving people an opportunity to add to, their basket of knowledge around what a card means. So today, obviously, we're focusing on the aces, but when we take a look at how we might use the tarot outside of, guidance or outside of a reading, aces can really be great tools to help us try and manifest something we're looking to start.
Mhm.
So, one of the examples, I was thinking of is if when Bonnie talked about our podcast being an Ace of Wands project or an Ace of Wands task, if you thought about a passion project that you were looking to start and might be struggling to manifest that energy, bringing the Ace of Wands card out of your deck and placing it somewhere visible can be a great reminder of the kind of energy that you might need to draw on, like drawing on the inspiration, another fire word, drawing on the inspiration from the Ace of Wands to start that project and leaving it somewhere prominent,
Mhm.
bedside table, uh, you know, uh, bathroom vanity, car dashboard, so that when you need those visual reminders, when you need the idea that, hey, what I'm looking to do right now is manifest that Ace of Wands energy, that visual reminder can can help you do that. I don't know. Any other thoughts around a practical aspect for the Ace of Wands card itself?
Yeah, no, I love that. I definitely it's around creativity, right? And something that you're wanting to create. So it could be you could be stuck and maybe you're wanting a new creative project, but you don't quite know what that is or how to start something. Using the Ace of Wands for that, I think is beautiful. And when it's funny when you said, oh, to put the card, like when we think about the ace as a seed that we're going to plant, you could even take that card and put it under your pillow or under your mattress, right? And it's like, oh, I want to create something. I don't quite know what that is. Maybe when I go to sleep at night, I'm going to have the intention of, getting some creative spark, in my dreams and putting that card somewhere under your bed. I think that would be kind of cool in terms of, metaphorically planting
Mhm.
something. So
Yeah,
taking that card and
interesting.
putting it somewhere.
Yeah. Or even
That
if you
could be
have the
fun.
ability, I guess, putting it in a, maybe a protected container and literally planting the card, like digging in a garden, putting it in
Yeah,
the
putting it in
ground,
like a Ziploc bag or
Ziploc
like a
bag, right?
plastic.
Putting it in,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a
tucking,
great idea.
tucking it in the garden.
We're full of great ideas, Peter.
Well, just I think what we're trying to do, and we had talked about this before, is we really hope to broaden your experience with the tarot because I think people think that the tarot is an exclusive tool for reading or for consultation or whatever language you want to use. And what Bonnie and I are really trying to communicate to people is that it is that, but it can be so much more
Mhm.
than that as well. And this really can be. And I've used the language ritual before, because I think anytime you try and you do something physical to manifest something that's not physical, you're kind of falling into that ritual space. But that idea of sort of planting it under your pillow. That was I thought that was brilliant. And then of course right away it caused me to jump to, well, why not
Plant
why
it.
not plant it, right? Literally plant. And if something
Or even
grows
take a
from it,
photocopy,
totally.
right? Or like
Yeah.
do something or
Yeah,
draw,
totally.
on a piece of paper and plant that in the
Plant that.
ground, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Or again, being, with this case being the Ace of Wands, then it might even be putting it in a fire. It might be writing it on a piece of paper and then placing that into the fire and then
Oh,
sort of,
yes,
right,
Peter.
that idea
You're
of burning
speaking my
away.
language. I love to do that. Yeah,
Right. So yeah, so do I.
absolutely.
And we often will do that around particular points of the year, with a large fire and right intentions and away they go. And then there's that idea that, the seed that you're planting, and I think of seeds that require fire to be able to burst and create new growth. In a lot of ways, you're almost visually drawing on the energy that would really sit, the potential that really sits inside that Ace of Wands. Wow, do we ever go on a tangent?
We could keep going because
I
my
know,
mind is like
I
spinning
know
because
we
I'm
can.
like, oh, so many things we
Yeah,
could do with the Ace of Wands.
yeah, I agree. I think I think that that's a and they're powerful when you're using the images of the tarot for that purpose. They're powerful. And what I might do as well as we get to other cards is talk a little bit about how the images, because there are some commonalities. A lot of the aces look very similar from deck to deck to deck to deck, and draw
Mm.
on some of the meanings that we've talked about that are particular, or that are common around aces. So, all right, but should we move to another? Should we
Should we
go to
move
another ace?
on? Yeah. Do you want to, what do you want to
Otherwise,
talk? Do you want to go the
this will be episode part. This will be part one of the
part
aces. Part two of the
exactly.
aces.
Part two. What do you want to move to? The Ace of Cups, if
Yeah,
we want
Ace
to
of
go in
Cups.
that
Yeah, totally.
order.
Yeah, we'll go. Yeah, we I guess we'll go we'll go wands, cups, swords, and then pentacles. Yeah, yeah.
Sounds good.
Esoteric order as well. I think so. Works for me.
Yes.
All right.
Do you want to start with that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, sure. So, I guess in the same way we talk about the Ace of Wands, I would talk about the Ace of Cups as being that initiation of energy, that offering, that message. But where does it come from? In what realm of our life does it live in? Well, it lives in the realm of water. So for water, we are in our heart. We're in the space of love and compassion, but we're also in that space of magic and intuition, where the suit of cups is where our relationships sit. It's also where our moods sit. It is where our sacrifices sit as well. Sometimes it's where our vulnerability sits. So
Mhm.
I think when we look at the Ace of Cups, we think about all of those energies, the intuitive, the mysterious, the deep, the lovely, the compassionate, the vulnerable, the intuitive. The, yeah, that's so when I think about the Ace of Cups, I think about all the ace language that we use, that planting seed, that new message, that initiation, but it sits specifically in the land of water, in the element of water, in the suit of cups. What about you? I know you always have
Yeah.
so much to add, so that's why I like passing the baton, like
The
passing the
baton, the
wand
Ace of
over. Ace
Wands.
of Wands.
No, that was fantastic. Uh, I I see the Ace of Cups not differently. I agree with everything, but it has a special place in my heart, as a
Oh,
play on
good
words,
play. Nice play on
right?
words.
Because I love setting intentions, and when I set intentions, I always say it has to come from the heart. Not, it doesn't have to, but when we really listen to our heart and what is our heart's true desire, then that's what we can, bring into our reality. And the Ace of Cups really embodies that for me, because usually, in one of in Chris Ann's The Light Seers, she's actually holding the cup in front of
Your
her
heart.
heart, and I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. And a lot of other decks that I have, it's like the cup is near the heart. So I see it almost as like heart opening. Like, how can I open my heart to receive? And what is it that I want to receive? Love, compassion, healing, a new relationship, a new emotion. So it's really allowing yourself to open up to receive those things, because a lot of times our heart is closed off and we have difficulty receiving those types of things. So the more that we embrace love, if we're gonna, talk about love with the heart center, um, we can we can invite more of that into our lives in any area of our life. It doesn't just have to be those certain things. So I really think about that as like the heart, but I also think about it as like the beginning of an intention. What is it that I want to manifest or, bring into my reality? So I love the card for that, and to really to help you expand that heart energy. And also healing, it could be like an opportunity now that, okay, I'm in a space where I'm able to heal, I'm able to move forward. It could also be about forgiveness, right? It could be the start of a
Mhm.
journey of forgiveness. So really all the things related to, the self, but also love and how that relates to you, because then that ultimately relates to everything else.
So if I can, I'm going to give a practical example because I and you kind of reminded me because I won't get into a lot of detail, but we sort of delayed the recording of this podcast episode because I wasn't feeling well. And the card, you talk about the idea of healing and self-love, the idea of giving yourself sort of permission and vulnerability. This is the card that's sitting in front of me. So for those of you who can't see it, it's the Ace of
Ah,
Cups, just as a reminder to say, you know what? Give yourself permission. You might not be at 100%. So, when we talk about the idea and the power of cards, like I love when you talk about Chris Ann's deck and the fact that what she does is hold the cup close to her heart. And because I can visualize the card, there's also power emanating from that as well. Like the cup has almost that heart, like you can
yeah, I'm
almost
going to
see
look
it. Yeah,
for
yeah.
it.
Take a look for it because I was thinking about, for those of you that are using different decks, take a look and see what element of that ace energy the artist has highlighted, because so often we're familiar with the Rider Waite Smith sort of version, which is always the ace being offered from a hand emerging from, the sky or the cloud. But and I think of that deck exactly, right, and you can see the power kind of emanating
Mm.
that, and it's literally a heart,
A heart
kind of,
inside the
yeah,
bowl
inside the
or the
bowl.
cup.
Yeah, and the that idea that it's literally a heart, like you can see that energy of the heart kind of coming out. Because I was
Mhm.
thinking of other decks, is the idea of the Rider Waite Smith and the offering of the element itself kind of coming from the cloud. So it really does highlight that area of offering and gift. And other artists, and I think of the Tarot of the Abyss, for example, where it is more the energy of the element itself that
Mhm.
places itself front and center in the card. So, we're cognizant of the fact that we have some people who are listening and some who are watching. So we really probably could, hold up a whole series of aces. But what I'll offer instead is, whatever deck you happen to be using, go and take a look at what the images of the aces say, and in all likelihood they fall in a series of groups. They have the idea of that initial oneness. So the one, I think of the Tarot de Marseille, where there's one coin that's floating in the middle of the card. And there's not two, there's not three,
Mm.
there's one. I think of the Rider Waite Smith, where it's more the offering, the idea of the gift or the message that's coming from the cloud, the divine nature of that ace-like offering. Or other cards like, like Chris Ann's deck, or like the Tarot of the Abyss deck, where it's the element, or the I guess the the essence of the element itself, like the essence of heart that's emanating from that Ace of Hearts in Chris Ann's deck, which I always want to say the the
Ace
the
of
the
Cups.
muse. That's it, the Ace of Cups. But the name of the deck. What's the name of the deck?
Light seers.
Light Years. I always think of the Muse, but that's her other deck, right?
Oh, that's the
Light.
other, yes.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, so, and I think we kind of talked about a little bit as we were, going back and forth around the uses of manifestation, around the idea of intention setting with the Ace of Cups. Is there anything you wanted to add from a practical perspective there? Because I know you definitely talked about the importance of that card.
Yeah, I think whatever, well, the other thing too that I like to think about when I see the Ace of Cups is what's inside the cup. So that could even be a question as to, you're being presented with this cup. It's like a blessing, something joyful, hope, is going to come from that. So what is inside that? So if you want to use it for, practical purposes, yeah, what is it that you want to feel, or are you going through a healing process? Is there forgiveness, or is there a relationship that you want to bring into your life? So really, and again, you can do anything with the card. You could plant it, like just like we talked about with the Ace of Wands. Yeah, anything that comes from that emotional feeling, love, even intuitive, you want to spark some more intuition, that's a great card because the suit of cups is definitely about using your intuition and increasing that. So,
And yeah, I agree that like everything around that Ace of Cups. And then if I was going to just add like a practical aspect, again, I would think about the idea of when we talked about whatever, the intention, whatever you're looking at, however you want to see the Ace of Cups represented, then I think, well, how could you bring in the element of water? And I can remember
mhm.
activities where, somebody would write something on a piece of acetate and then would drop the acetate in a container of water and have it sort of wash away. Like all of the kind of things that you might potentially do to bring in the energy of the Ace of Cups. Even sitting in a bath, which is pretty much a big cup. Even thinking about what it is, new relationship, all of the emotion, forgiveness, vulnerability, intention, intuition, mystery, magic, all of the things that sit inside that cup's realm. What are you trying to bring forward? And do you think about that sitting, inside the probably biggest cup that might sit inside your house, bath, pool, hot tub? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and I love to take baths. And
Right.
you sparked another thought, Peter, because when we think about water energy, right, it's very nurturing,
Hmm.
it's receptive,
Right.
right? And when you take a bath, or if we think too about like flow, like water flow. So if you're at a point in your life where you're needing more flow, where maybe things could be stagnant, but you're
Mhm.
wanting to welcome something new, but there's that energy that feels really stuck, using that card to help you increase the flow of water through the body by nurturing yourself and using the energy of that card, I think is amazing. So that's another way that you could use that if you're looking at the element of water and how you feel in your body. So helping you to flow through life,
Yeah.
with ease and grace. Sometimes we get so stuck and we try to control everything, and what we need is just to kind of let go and allow the water to do that
Yes.
for us.
Yeah. And you use the language let go, and I think of cleanse, right, which is another thing that water, allows us to do. So all of those things that those energies that sit inside the Ace of Cups that you can then manifest using the language and actions, I guess, of the element too. So
Mhm.
all right. Two
Okay.
down, two to
You
go.
know. Okay, so should we tackle the Ace of
Ace of
Swords?
Swords, yeah, yeah.
The Ace
All
of
right.
Swords. So when I think about the Ace of Swords, or I see it, it's all about sort of new ideas and clarity and like that aha moment. So I should probably work with the Ace of Swords if we're talking about using it as a practical thing, because sometimes I get really confused and I lack direction. So when that ace shows up, because we're dealing with swords and we're dealing, with the mind and communication, it usually tells me that something is coming, some type of clarity or a new idea or like a breakthrough of some
Mhm.
sort. So if, we're working on something and we just can't figure it out, like we're gonna, get that messaging or get that clarity that we need. So it also brings up, I think, honesty and truth. So if the Ace of Swords is showing up for you, what is something, that you need to be honest about or look at? And that could be about how you're feeling. Like, how do you talk to yourself? How do you communicate with yourself? Is that the most authentic and honest way to
Right.
communicate? Often we're our own worst enemies in how we communicate.
Mhm.
So I think it sits in that realm of communication and thoughts and ideas. So really the potential of something new, but coming from like this idea, or like it's like a light bulb going off. That's kind of how I see the Ace of Swords.
Yeah.
How would you describe it,
No,
Peter?
the same. The same. I would say all the same things. I would add that element, that air element. I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but the idea that the swords sit in the element of air. The only other thing that I often associate to swords is technology, um,
Mm,
because of the means, because of it is very much a means of communication and facilitation that when we're talking about new technology, I often see that represented in the Ace of Swords as well, which
Mhm.
might be, might be odd to people, but I think, if we really are looking at that air quality, that sword sits in the air quality, um, then I would have the Ace of Swords representing that piece of new technology. And the other thing would be in decision making, in the idea that
Mhm.
often when we have a decision to make, that the action of either contemplating the decision, thinking about the decision, and then actually making the decision sits inside the suit of swords. So
Mhm.
the Ace of Swords is sometimes the precursor to a decision that is going to need to be made. That sword kind of cuts one side from another side. It trims the fat, from the meat. It makes things nice and digestible. So that there's the sword. All the work and preparation to decision making also sits inside that Ace of Swords. So yeah, that's all I would have to say, other than all the wonderful things you said. So
You're too kind. But yeah, I love how you use the sword for cutting, right? Like it
mhm.
cuts through the fog, it cuts
Yeah.
through, confusion, even illusion, right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes we think about things and it's not really how it is. So
Right.
using that sword to really to cut through that so you can see the truth. I love that.
Yep. Yep.
And how would you use the sword then from like a practical
Probably in the same
perspective?
way. So, not to kind of repeat similar things. If some of the stuff that we've been talking about with the Ace of Wands and with the Ace of Cups would apply to the Ace of Swords. The one thing I would add is, particularly with that concept of communication, is we forget that a pencil or pen is almost a sword-like implement.
Yeah.
So for sometimes when we're stuck, if we're writers, or we're looking at the production of ideas or words, the Ace of Swords can sometimes be the card that helps us with the energies needed to get over something like a writing block. So if I think if and sometimes writing doesn't happen in longhand anymore, although I try every day to use. Now I do it on my iPad with my Apple Pencil, but I try and do a little bit of longhand writing every day. But I'm amazed as to how much even my electronic pencil looks like a sword.
Mhm.
So that's the one thing I would mention, would be the concept that if new ideas, if new thoughts, if new communication sits inside the realm of the Ace of Swords, then remembering that the manifestation of those ideas through the use of a writing sword, a writing implement, a pencil or pen, can sort of help with the manifestation of that kind of energy. So,
Mhm.
you know, and and then also doing other things that replace water and fire with air. Might be the use of incense or smoke. It might be the use of
Mhm.
actual air, the presence of a feather, that can often represent the elements that are there. What about you? You
Yeah.
always have great insights in how to manifest the energy of all the cards. So I'm curious.
Oh,
You know.
thank you, Peter. Wow, all these compliments today. I it's funny. This is really making me want to work with the Ace of Swords because I do lack clarity quite often and direction. So I think I am going to use the card for that reason. So my advice then would be, if you are lacking clarity,
Mhm.
if you're feeling confused and you don't know which, direction to go in, using that Ace of Swords to give you clarity and
Yeah.
to actually visualize like a sword coming down and like cutting through that fog or however you see this confusion, and then seeing what comes from that. And if it doesn't happen right away, then use it for as long as you need to use that so you can gain that clarity. And sometimes with the Ace of Swords, because we're going into that suit, that can sometimes be a little bit difficult because again, it's usually our thoughts that create the
Mhm.
most amount of turmoil in our lives. We may think of it as an uphill battle. So we could get this amazing idea or this insight about something, and we think, well, how am I going to do that? Or I don't think I can pull that off. So knowing again that you have the energy behind this card to help you to move forward and to help you formulate your thoughts so that they align with the path that you want to take, right? Rather than, again, like being led by fear or, our thoughts that create all
Yeah.
kinds of scenarios.
Yeah. 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 And when you talk about that idea of the creation of thoughts and rationale, it always draws me to another sword card that, I don't know if we talked about them, but I think about the Three of Swords, which, is
Mhm,
often that idea of, almost the creation of a narrative of some kind that exists inside our heads. And that's often what happens in the world of swords, is that it's our thoughts that are continuously running through our heads that get so strong and that have such a grasp on us that they literally create our reality for us.
mhm,
Um, so yeah, the Ace of Swords is a great card to be able to do that. And I think the reason we talk about working with the cards is that, well, one, because of I guess, the length of time or the use of the tarot, that they have an element of power to them, but just as a visual reminder, in the same way that if you have a tendency to leave your keys lying around and then can't find them, one of the suggestions is, well, put a key hook by the door. So the first thing that you do when you come in is you see the key hook to, oh yeah, I sometimes leave my keys lying around, and put the keys on the hook. The cards do the same thing. It's
mhm.
not necessarily that just by having the Ace of Swords present that it's going to help, whatever it is that you need support with, but it's that visual reminder that, yes, the Ace of Swords is telling me I need to do a little bit more of X and Y, and therefore I'm going to put myself in the headspace to be able to do that, and,
Mhm.
and
And then be open for that opportunity,
tune it.
for that
Exactly.
message, for that sign,
Correct.
right? I often think of the ace like a message is coming or there's a sign.
Mhm.
So, be open to receiving that. And a lot of times we close ourselves off from even being able to receive something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
I love that.
Exactly. Yeah. Well said. Well said. Okay. Um,
Okay, so on to
on
Pentacles.
to Pentacles, Ace of Pentacles. Look, I love the Pentacle energy. And so this is the element of earth. It is the most grounded. And again, right, when we talk about the idea of grounded, that language, earth, ground, are synonymous. We can talk about the idea of being grounded, or we can refer to the earth and we can refer to the ground, and often we're talking about the same thing. But I
Mhm,
also think that the earth is where our hands work. So anything that we're doing with our hands, but it's where our resources or where our provisions sit. Sometimes we talk about our resources or our work or our money, our wealth sit in this realm of pentacles. So then I actually, routine is another word that I often
mhm,
link to the suit of pentacles. So if we're talking about the Ace of Pentacles, then we're talking about all of those ace like things that exist inside the world, like all the ace like things that sit inside the realm of pentacles. So it is the beginning of a routine. It might be the start of a new job.
mhm,
It might be, a messenger offering that is wealth related or resource related, or even hand related, craft related. All of those kinds of things that, we've, I don't want to belabor because we've sort of talked about them in other suits, but they would come forth in that element of earth, in that suit of pentacles. So all the pentacle like things and the earth and the ace like things come together in the Ace of Pentacles. So I don't
mhm,
know,
mhm.
feels like a botched up explanation.
No, not at all,
But
Peter.
you would have things to add.
A couple things. I would say also health, right?
Right.
So
Yeah,
we
yeah,
think
of
about the
course.
physical body, we think about the physical things in our life, and then, often the physical body falls under, the pentacles energy as well. I also think about abundance, how we view abundance, how we want to create abundance, and then also this idea of gratitude. So when I see pentacles, I think about like, okay, we want to create some abundance, this about those things in our lives, those material things. But in order to create abundance, it has to start from a place of gratitude, right? So being grateful for the things that you have now. So when that ace shows up, it could be like, are we really thankful for the things that we have in our life now? Because then that plants the seed to bring in more things. So it's sort of a broad category, I find, with pentacles, because it can
Mhm.
refer to so many different things. And I guess it would just be dependent upon, who the reading is for and what's, more prominent for them at the time. Is that health? Is that your career? It could be a new house. It could be a new car, like, so many different things. So I love the ace. I mean, I love all the aces, but the Ace of Pentacles, it has a special energy, I find. And I find that it looks like a seed, right? Like it's a round, it's a
Right.
disc, or it's a coin, right? Like again, like
Mhm.
that I can visualize planting in the ground, and how can I nurture that? And again, when we think about the earth element, that's receptive, right? How can you nurture it? How can you um use that so that it grows and that it flourishes? So this really sort of compassionate, loving energy around that seed.
Yeah, you talked about seed, so it made me think of the Tarot of the Abyss, where
Mm,
the Ace of Pentacles is actually, and I think I've got it nearby. So let me just, yeah, I do. The Ace of Pentacles is actually a seed, right?
it
It's
is.
so
Okay.
it's the seed
Yes.
that's causing the tree to grow. In the Ace of Pentacles. So for those who saw it, and then you just saw it. For those who didn't, it is just that. It's a large seed that is kind of bringing forth a tree. And then the other thing as well, speaking of which, was nature. That the one
Mm,
thing that we didn't mention is often pentacles are a call to reconnect or
yes.
to connect with the outside, with the natural world as well. So
Mhm,
you sort of keep that in mind. What
mhm.
about uses? So if we were thinking of wanting to use that card, the Ace of Pentacles, where would you
Yeah,
start?
again, it could I think it just really goes in line with what we've already mentioned. Like if there's, a new health regime that you
Yeah,
want to start, or you really want to, I think this one is important for me. It's like connecting back to my physical body.
yeah,
I spend so much time
yeah.
in the air element, right? Like I'm always like, woo, I'm flying up here, but I'm not really feeling what it feels like to be in my body. So really wanting to ground yourself, and also connecting with nature. That's something else that I also need to do. Kind of force myself to go outside, because I spend, I think, way too much time inside. So if you're wanting to start something, um, using that Ace of Pentacles to help you start that, again, it could be about starting a gratitude practice, if that's where you want to start. We everybody talks about, like, oh, gratitude journal, I think we take that for granted. It's such a powerful exercise, and I think we often overlook that. So that could be a really easy way to use the Ace of Pentacles to start with something seemingly small, but
Right.
that can have a really significant impact. So yeah, food for thought. I think I'm getting a lot of ideas of things that I need to start doing.
Yes, our intention was to overwhelm people, you or me or anybody else, with all the things that we need or want to do. But I love the idea of that, and I hadn't thought of the pentacles as the space of gratitude, but of course, it makes so much sense because the idea of groundedness, often one of the reasons why we would use a practice of gratitude would be to kind of bring us back down to earth, is to remind us of the things that we have, as opposed to
Mhm.
being stuck in our heads with the things that we want, right? It's not bad to have goals, but our goals are something we haven't achieved yet. What gratitude does is it actually keeps us in the here and now. It says, well, these are the things that you currently have, and should express gratitude for. And that idea of I have it really is a pentacles based language. So that idea of the Ace of Pentacles being something that represents the start of a practice, a gratitude practice, is brilliant. Oh, thank you
Well,
for that.
and
That's something
oh,
I'm gonna add that. I'm gonna definitely add that to how I interpret the suit of pentacles. Is how does gratitude sit inside all of the cards, but in particular, how does the start of gratitude, the seed of
and
gratitude,
I
sit in?
think that that's the hardest part of manifestation, right? We want something, but we really align with the energy of the lack of having it,
Yeah.
which really
Mhm.
separates us from it, right? We're creating resistance. So whenever I see pentacles, I'm always reminded back to like, how do you view abundance? And then how can you harness the energy of abundance? And the easiest way to do that is to start with all of the blessings that you have now. So it's kind of like a backwards thing. It's like something that you're wanting, but how are you going to get something that you want is being grateful for something that you have now.
Right.
And you know, even in times where it's difficult to think of something that you're grateful for, well, clean air, the sun that rises every, it can even be, you know, just those types of things. So
Yeah, there's just as a segue from a gratitude, and I actually think called it might be called a prayer of gratitude. It's by Rob Bresney, who is an astrologer whose book, I think the book is called Pronoia. And early on in the book, it's a 2 or 3 page list of things to be grateful for.
mhm,
And he lists everything from, again, looking at this from a privileged perspective is, I just go to a switch on the wall behind me and hit it and I get light. And
mhm,
if I want water, I turn a tap and water comes out. And not only does water come out, I have options. I can have cold water, I can have hot water, or I can have somewhere in between. One, that's because of the privileged position I sit in, but two, I should be grateful for that because, that is not something that everyone has as a reality in their day-to-day life. So if you're right, if you're searching for things to be grateful for, we don't have far to go. So again,
mhm.
here we go on a tangent. But that idea of the idea of the Ace of Pentacles, to bring it back full circle, the idea of the Ace of Pentacles really around that seed of gratitude. So wow.
Yeah, and
Lots of
that's just one piece.
It's one piece. And what I
That's just
hope
one
we've
piece.
done, and it was really funny because I think, at the outset, we're like, oh, we're going to be talking about 4 cards. Like, we have enough to fill an episode? Ha ha. Lots and lots. So hopefully
A
what we've
lot.
done is given you, with really 4 cards, is giving you lots of things to think about as you navigate that. And we suspect that this will be the first of a series of episodes where we look at, the twos and the threes and all of the cards of the minor arcana, or the pips of the minor arcana, and look at them this way. But we
Mhm. And
probably will.
again, oh, sorry.
No, no, no. Go,
I
go, go.
totally cut you off.
No, no.
But also helping people to understand that, you know, the ace, there's a lot of similarities with the
Right,
ace. So when
right,
the ace comes up, okay, you've already got like new beginnings, a
right.
message, and then tying it in with that element. So that hopefully helps to lessen the overwhelm of, you know, all the 78 cards
Right.
of the deck. So
Yeah, yeah, it's a great way of looking at it, right? 4 suits, 10 cards. If you can remember what the 4 suits are and the energy of the 10 cards, that's 14 things. You put them all
mhm,
together, and you've just created the meaning of 40 different cards.
mhm.
Without having to go, oh my goodness, okay, I got to memorize. Oh, what's the Ace of Pentacles mean? Oh, all right, now I got to memorize the Ace of Swords. What does that mean? Well, not really, because the aces have a particular commonality, and then so do the suits. So, yeah, no, good reminder. Good reminder.
Mhm, mhm. You ready to pull a card, Peter?
Yeah, sure. Although it's funny when we talked about in the past, what do you do when you're stuck? As I've mentioned before, as being in a low energy sort of space,
Mhm.
I might be drawing on some of those, skill sets today. You never know. You never know. With my luck, I'll pull something like the moon, or cards that have caused me grief in the past. So, are you ready?
Sure.
You want to start, or you want me to start?
Oh, yeah, I can start.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the Light Seers by
Yeah.
Chris Ann.
All right.
So I'm shuffling the deck and I'm going to pull a card. And again, as I said last time with the courts, I'm like, wouldn't it be funny if we pulled
We
an
pulled an
ace?
ace.
So
Yeah.
yeah, hopefully we don't pull an ace, but let's see what pops up. Okay, this one. Speaking of one of those cards, wow, I'm on a roll here. I think the last time I pulled the 5 of Cups. So
Yeah. Yeah.
today,
We got the
I pulled the 9 of Swords.
Okay. Well, yeah.
So in this particular deck, it has a woman. She's kneeling down. She has her head in her hands. You know, there's a pillow beside her and
Yeah.
some birds flying up overhead. So generally, when the 9 of Swords shows up in a reading, again, we were talking a little bit about swords energy earlier, and that idea of our thoughts and what our thoughts are causing us distress. And I think the Nine of Swords is the perfect example of that. It's, when our thoughts are just, we're just ruminating over the same thing. It's like our thoughts are circling around and around, most likely about a situation that we're worried about or we're fearful about that hasn't happened yet, that we're sort of creating that idea in our mind that something, we're worried that something's going to happen. It doesn't necessarily mean that that has happened. So, on the lighter side of the card, I think it's an invitation to really look at your thoughts and where that amount of energy is going to what it is that you're thinking about, and how can you change your mindset in the moment. It's not predicting something bad is going to happen, but where your thoughts are sitting and what you can do to interrupt that flow of thoughts so that you can invite something else into your life to think about. We all know what it feels like. You're falling asleep and your mind just keeps going over something that happened during that day, or some type of conflict maybe that you're in, right? Like you can't get out of that headspace because it just keeps going, but something needs to interrupt that flow of thoughts. So what can you do to do that? Really, really reflecting on what you're thinking about. So
Yeah.
what would you say? That's a tough card when
It's
that shows up.
it is a hard card when it shows up, but what I appreciate about the Nine of Swords is that it normalizes that
Mhm.
experience because it's represented in the tarot. And if we say, well, if the tarot represents all aspects of our life, the fact that there
Mhm.
is a card that represents the things that keep us up at night, the things that
Yes.
cause us to sit up in bed, it says it, what it does, I think, is it I'll say it almost collectivizes it to make up a word.
You've done that before.
It's a shared experience. It
Mhm.
says, you know what? Yeah, right now there's something that's weighing heavily on your mind. And I always use the language of weighing heavily because I visualize the nine swords that hover over the person's head
Mhm.
in bed with the pillow, in the Rider Waite. They've got nine swords weighing them down. And it's like, it is the reality that this is real for you. And then I
Mhm.
love the suggestion because it can be an invitation to be, and that invitation doesn't necessarily exist in the energy then of the Nine of Swords, but it's an invitation for you to ask, well, what do I need to do to move beyond this?
Mhm.
Or there are nine swords, there aren't one. Like, am I attributing way too much power to this thought by multiplying it nine times in my
Mhm.
head? Like those kinds of things that go along with the Nine of Swords. But as you mentioned, it can be a challenging and a confronting card when it shows up. But I always think just to repeat what I said initially, is what it also says though is it does say that this can be a shared experience and that at
Mhm.
times it happens to everyone. We all have things that at some point in time, have, to use language that's kind of linked to the image of the card, has kept us up, at night. So that's,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's the only thing that I would add. So
Thank you.
yeah, yeah, no worries. Thank you. That's, yeah, you've the last couple of cards, but again, and just as I shuffled to reiterate what our intention was, was to try and give you different perspectives on different cards in different ways. So we
Mhm.
had an episode today where we talked about four cards and what they can bring forward, but at the end of every episode, we each draw a card and look at the interpretation of the card and what it might look like if it became, your card of the day, or if it was a card that sat inside a reading. And we figured, we're on 14 episodes now, which means I think we've only had one card show up twice. But we're almost halfway through the deck, or a third of the way through the deck at 27 or
Mhm.
28 cards. And it gives you an opportunity to learn a little bit about the cards and what they would look like if they came up in a reading, and what Bonnie and I offer about the cards. So there's
Oh, and
my,
can I just like add
yeah, of
something? Because
course. I'm going to
I
keep
just
going.
had an Ace of Swords moment. So if this card shows up for you and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, like my mind is, racing, why not intentionally pull the Ace of Swords to give you some clarity, to help break through that fog so that you can get a different insight into what it is that you're thinking about, or to help you, with a different thought. So that just came to me.
All right. And or to reduce nine swords to one sword,
Right.
right? To take the power of nine, because often even the nine, the one thing I didn't mention is nines are often about peak power. That
Right.
when we get to a 10, we're actually starting to move, back to that cycle of one. That nines are
Yeah.
often, I think of the Nine of Pentacles, it's the ultimate abundance that, kind of sits
Mhm.
inside that card. That the Nine of Swords can be about that peak power of the mind. Let's reduce that. So
Yeah.
I didn't draw an ace either,
Okay.
although I did draw a solitary card. Um, I drew the Hermit actually.
Ooh.
So, which is interesting. So I always think so. For those of you again who can't see it, I'm using the Rider-Waite Smith. We've kind of gone back to the decks that we use. The Hermit is almost, I'll say, the quintessential wizard or guru style character, holding a staff in one hand, a lantern in the other that contains a bright six-sided star. They're standing at what looks like the top of a mountain, or at the top of mountain peaks, and they're alone. And they're actually alone in all capacities. That the landscape in which they're in contains nothing but kind of the snow peak and where it meets the sky. And they're lighting up their space solely with the lantern that they carry. So I always think that the Hermit is really an invitation. And I think I've mentioned this before, that the Hermit is also the insert of the Led Zeppelin 4 album with the idea of Stairway to Heaven. So if we want to look at cultural references, the Hermit is often an invitation for, it really is an invitation for solitude.
Mhm.
It is an invitation to seek knowledge, but to seek it internally. And
Mhm.
I sometimes contrast the Hermit with the Hierophant, which is another sort of card in the major arcana that has us seeking insight and knowledge, but has us seeking it elsewhere, or has us sharing it with others. It's that outward, out goes the energy, the insight. But the Hermit really is about seeking insight. Now, it might be seeking support for insight, but what it is, the intent of the insight is to turn inward. So if we took insight and literally broke it down into the word insight, what we're looking at, we're looking at sight within. So,
Yeah.
how can we seek our truth? How can we seek our wisdom inside? The other thing it is at times is it's a question that asks us, how might the outside world be distracting us? So might we need to retreat? Might we need to seek solitude to draw ourselves away from the distractions of the outside world? So I think it's actually interesting that your card was the Nine of Swords, and that my card, the card I drew, was the Hermit. Together,
Which
the
is also
Hermit,
a 9.
right, which is also a nine. Thank you for pointing that out. Also a nine. Um, and the Hermit could be a card that actually invites you to say, if you drew the Nine of Swords and the Hermit together, the Hermit might be, really take that deep look inside of yourself, and try and find out, well, what is the source of those nine swords? What is it that is causing me the anxiety and the grief? Not to, we're almost creating a reading on the fly with two cards, but that's an example of what you might do when that hermit card shows up. So, um, I think it can be, even just a, well, when are you getting alone time? Like, when are you drawing yourself away from others? And then the last thing I'll mention is the astrological link to this particular card, which is Virgo. So it can also be, almost a systemic look, like that insight, can be, through meditation practices, can be almost through a systemic, um, yeah, meticulous, organized, ordered look, that internal look. So anyways, that's kind of where, I would go, with the Hermit, and then reminding you as well that, this is not a completely dark time. It's not that the
Mhm.
idea is for light and insight. So it's not withdrawal into depression. That's not what this is. Its purpose is actually withdrawal for information, withdrawal for self-development, withdrawal for self-knowledge. And at times it's even a choice to draw in. So it's not, I'm not drawing in because everything, is too much. It's I'm drawing in because I actually need to draw in, that I have a need to draw myself in. What about you when that hermit card shows up? Anything?
Yeah. Thank you. That was amazing, Peter. I don't have very much to add. Yeah, again, when I see the hermit, it definitely is an invitation to take some time alone. And again, not in a negative way, but in a way that we need that
Mhm.
time to be with ourselves. And sometimes that can be a scary place for people. People like to be distracted or not be alone with their thoughts because, that can be overwhelming. So definitely an invitation to take time. I also see that torch, right? Because that's sort of lighting the way.
Yeah.
And I view that torch as within. So seeking the light within you. So taking that time to be alone for introspection, for self-discovery, and finding the light within you, because that will provide clarity. And then once you do that, you become an inspiration for other people, because quite often people come to the
Right.
hermit too for
Mhm.
information, if we look at it from that perspective.
Right.
So when you work on yourself, you're also helping other people. And I think we forget that, we think other people need to change so that we can be happy. But if everybody just focused on themselves, right, I think that has a ripple effect and can help other people. You become that inspiration, and that beautiful energy that flows from you
Yeah.
definitely has an impact on other people. So really taking the time to go within, whatever practice resonates with you. If that's meditation, it could be hiking, taking a
Mhm.
bath, right? Like those types of practices, but giving yourself the time to spend with you, to find that inner light with you, within you, um to help you move forward, and to not have to stay there forever. If the hermit shows up, that doesn't mean, you need to retreat to a cave and not come out.
Right.
It's really honoring that time.
Hmm. Oh, great. Wow. Yeah. Thank you. You said you had nothing to add. You added tons.
Oh,
So yeah. Thank you
just
for that.
different words, Peter. It all means
Wow.
the same thing.
No, I don't know. No, I think it definitely deepened, the interpretation of the card. I love the idea of the concept of the hermit, of because I gave an example of, you needing that hermit energy, but what you had done is also you being that hermit for someone else as well, like being that ability to be able to go within, but then also to inspire others to do the same. So no, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you. Right. We've got a bunch of people here who hung out with us today. Before
Yes.
we say goodbye, um, what can people, where can they find you? What can they find you for? Oh,
Yes. Easiest way to find me is my website. So breathewithbonnie.com, which will be in the show notes. You can check out all the things that I'm doing on there. It's summer, so things are pretty quiet around the Breathe with Bonnie
the breathe with Bonnie
energy
world.
right now. But yeah, fall is coming, so hopefully, some more things will be ramping up. But I provide, services, tarot consultations, private yoga nidra meditations, or even group meditations or group readings. So have a look there, and that's where you can find me. How about you,
Yeah.
Peter? You have some exciting news, right?
Well, I do. I've been talking and talking and talking about, being able to find me on my website, peterwhitetarot.com. And although not officially launched, it is without a doubt upgraded. I'm thrilled with the work that happens. So you can still find me there, but in a much easier to navigate and I'll say, modernized look. So that's, where you can find me, as well as Peter White Tarot on Instagram, Facebook, and X. Although I don't go there very often, you can find me there too, and then see all the things that I have to offer, which I won't go over. I've done tons. Yeah, and look. On that note, I know that Bonnie and I love the fact that that you join us. If
Mhm.
you hung out today with us for the entire episode, we want to thank you. The other thing I will mention is, if you're enjoying our episode, then please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe, like, and comment. And then I will add and share.
Mhm.
on whatever platform you're listening to, whether it's Spotify or YouTube. By all means, please share with people that you think might also be able to gain some knowledge, insight, and connection to the tarot, along with Bonnie and I. And on that note, I want to thank you all for joining us today at the tarot table and say thank you and so long.
Bye.